Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about some must-draft IDP sleepers. Training camp is upon us. We're hearing some buzz, and as a result, Joe and I have 3 sleepers each that we want to share with you.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so why don't you start us off? Who's your first must-draft IDP sleeper?
Yeah, I'm going to go with safety Geno Stone, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens. I know he's not a household name, but when he got a shot last year with the Ravens, he had a really solid season with 7 interceptions, 9 pass deflections, 68 tackles. And now he's left the Ravens, signed down with the Cincinnati Bengals, and looking like he's going to be the starting free safety there. Dax Hill was a safety. They've moved him on the corner. Jordan Battle, no pun intended, but he's going to be in a battle for the starting opposite side safety there. So I like the opportunity Stone's got, and if he's able to keep making the plays on the ball, I know that really helps in a league like ours who reward those, big plays, the turnovers and the pass deflections. He's got some upside.
Yeah, I was wondering what was happening with the Bengals defensive back room in general because it didn't make a lot of sense. You had Jordan Battle who made flashes. Dax Hill did well in that role last year. Then they brought in Von Bell, signed him to a one-year deal. Then they brought in Geno Stone. I'm like, what are they doing with all these safeties? It doesn't make any sense. So obviously you've now seen the realignment of what they're doing. But Geno Stone really showed that he was quite the ball hawk after Marcus Williams went down. He got injured. I think it was something like a bicep or something of that nature. And so then Geno Stone steps in and did really, really well. So with the shifting that they've done with the back end, I like this pick with Geno Stone. I think he is a sleeper. He's not a household name. Maybe people were familiar with him, but after he left Baltimore, people I think have forgotten about him. All right, Joe. So my first must draft IDP sleeper. Kind of a homer pick for me because it's not a Bills guy, but he's a guy that I've drafted in the past. That's going to be defensive lineman Keon White. Right now, our friends over at the IDP show and their best ball rankings got him at DL 118, edge rusher 87, which is considerably bad. Now, he started towards the end of the year, he started some games. I'm looking at a 9-game stretch here. He averaged about 1.5 hurries per game over that span, and around 1.7 tackles per game. With the unfortunate news with Christian Barmore, a part of me wondered whether I should, keep this as a sleeper or not. But I do think that someone does need to step up in that defensive line room. And, there's been a lot of raving reports of Keon White so far. So far as head coach Gerard Mayo has said that, he's really become a leader. And I, there are things you take and you don't take from training camp and what's said and what's not said. But that one I believe. I think he is emerging to be a leader, and Gerard Mayo really believes that he's going to take a huge jump in year 2. So I think that this guy could really come on the scene this year.
Yeah, and we know that, it's hard for rookie interior guys as well to come out and perform well. So now second year and system should be relatively the same with the head coaching change. So that should help Kane White. And I know this guy last year in the pre-draft process you really liked. So we'll see if it comes to fruition.
Well, I envisioned that he was gonna. I mean, we view him more as an interior defensive lineman, right? They run a 3-4 defense. He's not the outside linebacker. He's playing in that front defensive front. And now that Barmore is out, I think they're gonna probably rely on him even more on the interior. Because it's tough because Cam White's such a huge guy. That was the tough part coming out of Georgia Tech. I think that's kind of why he slid to the second round. Is he an outside guy? Is he an inside guy? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. All right, Joe, so who do you got for your second must-draft IDP sleeper?
Yeah, I'm going to stay at the interior defensive line spot and talk about Calais Campbell. And I know some people might write this guy off because, he's 37 years old, but tell you what, he's still got it. Last year with the Falcons, he was able to get 6.5 sacks, 56 tackles, and he played a full 17 games still even at his age. And he's coming over to the Miami Dolphins. Christian Wilkins is no longer there, so got some big shoes to fill. And I just like the sack upside he potentially has, even at his age, and now for a big opportunity of playing time with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, defensive linemen like that can play later in their career. I don't think we should get spooked by the age. He's going to be, coming back. I mean, he was a Miami Hurricane, so he now comes back to where it all began, now in
Yep.
Miami. And I think that they need him quite desperately. I mean, some will probably think Zach Seiler is going to take that next step up. I'm just not sure. I don't know if that'll be the case. I think once they brought in Campbell, I kind of was a little more suspicious because I do think that they may rely on him. But he could have. I think people could be really sleeping on Campbell. I think he could have a really really good year because Wilkins, man, he had so many tackles.
Yeah.
They relied on him so heavily. That defense is going to look drastically different without Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, Campbell definitely helps. And I think honestly, Campbell could help Sealer as well. Because he's used to playing alongside a guy like Christian Wilkins, eating up kind of blockers for him and freeing him up to rush the passer. So I think Campbell could have that same effect for him.
So, Joe, I'm going to be going with an older guy as well here for my second IDP sleeper. That's going to be Danico Autry. He's regarded as a defensive lineman 60 and edge rusher 43, but I envision he's going to play in the interior. He's kind of a tough guy. I mean, depending on where he's been in his career, sometimes he's been more of an outside guy, sometimes he's been more of an inside guy. Last year with the Titans, he totaled 53 pressures, 12 sacks, and 20 total tackles. People are not thinking about this guy that often, but he gets a lot of sacks. Over the past 3 years, he's had over 53 pressures and averaged 11 sacks. And now he's going to the Houston Texans, where he's playing on a defensive line with Will Anderson and now, the newcomer, Danielle Hunter. So I think that Danico Autry could do really, really well in Houston. I think he's going to get another 10 plus sacks.
Yeah, he really could. I mean, he was a guy that honestly impressed me last year, and he showed that he still had the juice, and obviously getting the sacks from the interior position, and that's honestly, and it's big, to get that sack upside from the interior position on somebody, and like you said, take away his age, but going over to the Texans really should help him. You mentioned the edge rushers. They can't focus on him. It's going to be tough to double team with the guys that they have on the edge.
And they really don't have anybody in the interior for Houston. They haven't
Right.
been able to find anybody. I mean, we're talking more so from a 2024 fantasy football season. I mean, even if you're playing on a best ball, I would definitely, if there's defensive tackle, you got to get this guy. I mean, to me, where they have him right now is outrageous. I don't know how it's just because he's not a household name. I think really is all it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is, and I think he's just one of those guys too that just gets overlooked. He had some rough years. I feel like when he was younger, but I feel like he's kind of grown as he's been aging and just continue to get better.
All right, Joe. So who is your last must draft IDP sleeper?
Yeah, might come to a surprise to a lot of people, but I'm gonna stick with another older guy and go with Von Miller, edge rusher for the Buffalo Bills. Last year look, he just wasn't good and he wasn't himself. He even said he rushed back from surgery, and I think he truly did. I didn't see a fully healthy guy. He didn't use all of his moves. He was just kind of, would go up to the tackles. He wouldn't try to do side to side moves or really shake them. Just kind of engaged them. And like we were talking before we started shooting here, the Bills were a team that like to heavily rotate these edge rushers. Their depth doesn't really seem to be that deep anymore. They've mainly got Epinesa, Rousseau, and Von Miller. So if these guys start getting increased playing time, and I think another year removed from that injury, full training camp this year, he says he's feeling great. At the end, what gives me a little bit of hope is at the end of last year, I feel like we started to see some of those vintage Von Miller pass rush moves. And if he can carry that success that he had towards the end of the season into this one, I think we could see a different player.
Yeah, and I think something is you have to consider this, right? The Buffalo Bills did not cut Von Miller. They could have.
Right.
It would have costed them quite a bit, but they could have saved. I believe they could have saved some money if they did so. So to me, if Brandon Beane in the front office felt like, no, we need to keep this guy, they're not just keeping him just for keepsakes, right? I mean, they truly believe. If you hear defensive coordinator Bobby Babich, right, you're hearing like they believe this guy still has a lot of juice. I mean, he says he can play another few years. So I think I'm with you, Joe. I think he's not going to be relied upon 100% of snaps, which will be a downside for him. But he should be fresh when he goes. And I think he has said as much that he had rushed back. So I don't think that some people will think it's nuts because he did absolutely nothing last year.
Right.
But even he would say it. But I think he's determined to prove people wrong and be like, don't forget Von Miller, because Von Miller, I mean, he's been one of the most elite edge rushers we've seen, in the past decade, in the NFL.
Yeah. And I think if he's healthy, I think we start to see more glimpses of his old self. And I'm throwing last year out and looking for him to, honestly, for where you're taking him, he's really low risk. And I feel like he's got some high sack upside.
Well, and look what he did, the year prior. I mean, before he tore his ACL, I mean, he was looking
Right.
really good. So I agree with you. I mean, he's an older guy. He's recovering from a second torn ACL. I think he'll be much better. So the last guy I'm going to be talking about here as an IDP sleeper is linebacker Devin White of the Philadelphia Eagles, linebacker 26. Now, Pro Football Focus is not a fan of Devin White, Joe. He's consistently below 50, but honestly, that doesn't really bother me. I know people might be throwing tomatoes at me. I do appreciate PFF, but I don't think they're the end-all, be-all. But when it comes down to Devin White, we're looking at stats. At the end of the day, you can't deny that, his previous seasons, he had 93 tackles, 98 tackles, and 129 tackles. Not to mention he has the ability to rush the passer, averaging, around 39 pressures a year. And so if you think about the Philadelphia Eagles as a whole, I mean, look at how good this defense is. I think this linebacker group has done in the past. You had guys like TJ Edwards before he went to Chicago, who did really well. Even a guy like Kaiser White, guy who was really under the radar. People don't really talk before he went to Arizona. He did really well. If you look at that linebacker corps right now, they're talking about Zach Bond as the other linebacker. I mean, he's done absolutely nothing out of the University of Wisconsin, I believe. And then you've got, they got Nakobe Dean, who I thought he could be good, but even Vic Fangio came out like, yeah, he's been really good in college, but he hasn't really shown much in the NFL. So, Devin White's having, accountability group chats with captains of the team with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I think this guy's going to be a vocal guy in the locker room. I think he wants to, he knows it. I mean, he's in a Shaq Leonard moment right now. Either he's going to put up or shut up. And if he doesn't do it, then he might be looking at his career being over. So I think he's going to be hungry. I like Devin White this year.
Yeah, it's interesting just how, like you said, he was such a productive player. Then all of a sudden, just last year with the Bucks, something happened. Something wasn't clicking. They started to just not like him. His play really suffered. So we'll see what happens. I think the Vic Fangio style of defense should be a plus for him. Linebackers, I feel like, tend to do pretty well in his system. Just kind of sitting back in that zone and kind of can read and react. And I still think he's got some speed left to potentially do that. And like you said, just Nakobe Dean's been really disappointing for them. They need somebody to step up in the linebacker core. And it seems like he is taking more of that leadership role, now with the Eagles. So I do think he still has some upside. And like you said, I mean, he's going to be motivated because if he doesn't do well and revitalize his career in Philly, I don't know if he gets another chance elsewhere.
No, I don't think so. And here's the thing: Dean can't stay healthy. Where Devin White has been able to stay
Right.
healthy. The reason why he was not on the field is because Todd Bowles said you're not playing. So it was not because of a health reasons. And honestly, they may need him for interior pass rush. I mean, all their edge rushers are basically, like Hassan Reddick is gone. They're going to have to rely on guys like Nolan Smith. They brought in Bryce Huff. So it's a kind of a different group. They may need him to come in on blitzes. And that's one of his specialties.
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to need somebody because, I mean, they were terrible at creating pressure last year. And then, Hassan Reddick, who was supposed to be their best pass rusher, is now gone. So somebody's going to have to step up.
So that does it for our must-draft IDP sleepers for the 2024 season. Hopefully you found that helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.